Appreciate it. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's in here. As Coach G mentioned, I know this is not the typical X's and O's talk that y'all have been tuning into, but nonetheless, it's something that actually I feel is just as important. I think when you talk about culture and strategy and all those things that make a great program great, ultimately I see myself as being in the field of youth development, and football is my passion, all sports. So I want to premise this by saying, the Blessed to Announce project's on here, and that's kind of my affiliation, but this is not a Blessed to Announce project presentation. I want to give you guys accessibility on things that you can bring back into your program, help young people out as they transition to the next stages of their life, whether that be college athletics, college, whatever it might be. Like I said, this is youth development, but everything that I do, I can always tie it, relate it back to football, because I understand what those experiences did for me. I understand how I felt going through the process. So without further ado, the title, Bridging the Gap, High School to College Athletics, Where Are We Missing? Because as we'll see, I'll get into a little background, some statistics and numbers, but there are a lot of kids falling through the cracks here that are going on to the next level and not capitalizing, not graduating. So a little bit of background on myself. If you're familiar with me on Twitter, you might have seen a lot of this stuff already, but this gives context to why I'm so passionate about what I do and why it's so important to me. So, I'm the executive director of the Blessed to Announce project. I actually am pretty much a one-man show. I've got one partner who helps me facilitate our actual in-person meetings, but website, curriculum, social media, that's what I do at my free time. I'm not a teacher. I run a youth development program through community education in Minneapolis Public Schools. So I work with K through 5 right now. So for the past 4 years, I've kind of had the opportunity to work with kids from kindergarten all the way up to the seniors in high school. So that's my background as far as professionally goes. I'm currently working right now on site still. I work at an emergency child care center in Minneapolis. So I just got done with a long week at work, learning distance learning, just like all of you guys. So after I graduated high school, I began my career as a walk-on at the junior college level. The reason I put this up here, like I said, is to give context to some players in your programs who might be experiencing the same things, but also to help you understand that even the guys who might seem like they got it all together struggle a lot at that next level. And there's different ways that we can prepare them and support them in that process. So in high school, I actually was first team all state, first team all region, both sides of the ball. I got a 26 on my ACT. I had a 3.6 GPA, 7 school records, state runner-up in wrestling. And, I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I did everything in my power to prepare me for that next level. And I want to say I had 2 scholarship offers from Southwestern University to NAIA school in Menlo Park, another NAIA school. And I remember one of the coaches recruiting me was pitching me on the fact that they get into a van on Friday nights and drive 45 minutes to a Buffalo Wild Wings. And I was from the Phoenix metro area, so, going out to rural Kansas and doing all that was not and it was just a small partial scholarship. So I ended up actually on the back half of my senior year, I wasn't planning on playing college football at all. I was actually struggling a lot. I lost a lot of weight. I was considering joining the military. And then I kind of just had a change of heart after graduation and realized, I put in all this work and did all these things to prepare myself to get an opportunity. And I ended up walking on at the junior college level. I played at Scottsdale Community College in Arizona. We went to the Valley of the Sun Bowl 3 years in a row. Freshman year, we had 20 guys go Division I, 5 of who ended up getting NFL opportunities from one junior college team. So it was a completely different environment from what I was accustomed to. 2 seasons there, technically 3 redshirt sophomore. I transferred on scholarship to Concordia St. Paul, Division II school, where I became a starter and team captain, and I was able to do some good things as we turned our program around there. But long story short, I would be one of the guys in a high school program that you coaches would have loved to have in your program. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did everything right. I was totally on point with all of my business. I didn't make any mistakes, didn't get in any trouble. And when I got to college, my story changed dramatically. I was not prepared for many of the realities. And I just found myself struggling a lot more than I had expected to. going through very difficult situations. So that kind of inspired the Blessed to Announce project. And my passion now is basically preparing young men and women to transition to college and hit the ground running rather than enduring a lot of those hardships and finding things out, sink or float. Everybody's heard that expression. So that's a little background about myself, and just to give more context as to why this is so important to me, because I do remember it like it was yesterday. I graduated high school in 2013, college in 2017. So, we talk about bridging the gap, and that's an expression that I use. And when I'm talking to high school coaches, talking about why they could benefit from incorporating some of the things that we do in our program is, I just pulled the University of Minnesota, and just a heads up, this is not going to be the most visually aesthetic presentation, but I hope to deliver with some of the content. So you look at the University of Minnesota, PJ Fleck, great football program. I just quickly pulled through. They got, 2 nutrition staff, 5 sports psychologists, 2 or 3 head and assistant strength conditioning coach, plus 6 interns, a full-time, 3 full-time staff for athlete development, 3 full-time staff for Leadership University, and 10 plus academic counselors. That doesn't include compliance, admissions, financial aid, all the coaches who their full-time is dedicated to the program. And then on the right, you got high school. I work with mostly Title I high schools in the city, dealing with a lot of other challenges. And you've got coaches that are overwhelmed. They got 10 different hats to wear. They've got very little support sometimes from administration, and the sense of preparing kids for college athletics is not necessarily at the top of the pecking order when you look at public school and the things that they've got to deal with. So a lot of the coaches are off campus when you're talking about assistants and coordinators in some situations. So there's a huge gap in the amount of resources, time, and really authority and emphasis that is placed on student athlete development outside of sport at the high school level in comparison to the college level. But I'll tell you right now, a lot of the stuff on the left side of your screen, that Minnesota stuff, it's not being capitalized on, because by the time you get to college as an 18-year-old and you've got all these different changing components of your life and all these different things you're dealing with, ball is life, really. When you get there, you went there for that mission solely, and it's such a struggle with the transition. When coach says we've got a voluntary career services symposium tonight, I know at my school with 100 people on the roster, there might be 5 to 10. 5 to 10 dudes might show up to the career services, the writing center. We didn't have a leadership U staff or anything like that, but any voluntary opportunities, whether it be community service, these difficult, different things that we were able to leverage, they got missed out on. So there's a clear gap in just like I said, the resources, the positions. Student athlete development is a job title at a lot of schools. High school's got nothing like that, none that I'm familiar with, that I've seen. So we talk about bridging the gap, and that's where we kind of hope, through us being a nonprofit, other community partners, and just putting an emphasis on advocating for athletes. We usually make up a good portion of the general school body. We can kind of bridge that gap. And why is this needed? The statistic speaks for himself. 50% at the Division II level will graduate, 70 to 75, which on paper looks good, but then you realize you go pull up any roster, any photo on a football team page, you cut out 25 of those dudes. In the NCAA goals study, a third of athletes, NCAA football players, reported personal difficulties piling up so high that they could not overcome them, which translates to a lot of guys going back home, getting kicked off the team, making poor decisions, financial struggles, family difficulties, whatever the issues may be. Obviously, adversity is always going to hit, but there's different ways to prepare for just the drastic change, and that leads us to the next one. During the transition from high school to collegiate athletics, student athletes experience unique adversity and a change in social dynamics. And anybody could attest to that, whether you're an athlete or not. Going to college, you're around a lot of new, different things, and it's oftentimes what they call learning curve, but you throw in that piece of being a student athlete, and you got a drastic change that's going to be, considerably difficult in comparison to a regular student. And then the fourth one, I think a lot of coaches are in tune with this one already. There's just a primary athletic identity. It's dangerous anytime we put our identity in anything, right? Whether it's coaching, being an athlete, being a musician, being an artist, because if that is removed from our life, we don't have much to fall back on. So, whether it's football, badminton, trade school, military, workforce, entrepreneurship, we want kids to succeed after sport and make the decisions that are best for them. So some of the young men that I've worked with in the past end up going the trade school route. And that's perfectly okay. That's better than continuing to try to pursue football if you're stacking up debt, your heart's not in the game anymore, and you're getting injured. But what's the difference is having a young man who's mature enough to make that decision for themselves, where they actively can understand when it's time to change their own trajectory. Because at that point, we've done our job. If you can get an 18 or 19-year-old to realize when they need to make a difficult decision to support themselves, your job has been done. It's not over, but that's a good sign. Now, when you have to tell them or make the decision for them or give them an ultimatum, there's still a learning curve that needs to be reached. And this is what I see in a lot of high school programs, just due to the limitations. This is not to knock high school programs. I want to be very clear in that. We look to partner and supplement with high school coaches, not take over their job or say that they're not doing a good enough job. But these are kind of where you typically see a lot of, tweets and these are a lot of the core principles that coaches talk about at the high school level for if you want to play college sports. Get a good GPA and get good test scores. That's very vague. I'm going to just be honest. It's frustrating to me when you see a lot of the tweets about if your film don't match your grade. Kids know that. Kids know that. You don't meet kids that don't understand that they need to get good grades. It's just an empty, flushed out saying. Now, how can we support kids in getting that good GPA and increasing their test scores? What can we do for them? What direction can we point them towards? And how can we actually develop skill sets that will translate to other areas of their life that will just make them a better student? So it's not get a good GPA and get good test scores. It's how can we make you be a better student so that when you get to college and you don't have test scores and your GPA doesn't matter anymore, you're going to continue to have those same habits that help you be successful. Be a good teammate. So a lot of times this falls into character and leadership, which are phenomenal things, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. But bottom line, it's if it helps the program. So it's still going to be directed towards the football team and kind of just the general culture of that program. And the specifics vary, obviously, from team to team. Every head coach has the culture that they want to drive. And, being a good teammate, not getting in trouble off the field, these are things that don't get neglected. Football programs do a great job of keeping kids out of trouble, making really bad decisions, giving them a healthy, safe outlet. That's definitely one of the good components of how things are now. And then the third part is understanding how to get yourself recruited, but it's typically a lower priority, okay? A program like Coach G works in, and I know some of his staff is in here, it's phenomenal that high schools are implementing recruiting coordinators and bringing people onto the role of helping connect student athletes to the next level opportunities and preparing them with just eligibility and compliance and all those things. But at the same time, we see more of the good than the bad on Twitter and in the communities where we're at. Nationally, it's still you're in the minority if you're in a program with a recruiting coordinator at the high school level. I'm going to reference some stories and stuff throughout this talk, and just this is unfortunate. One of the young men, the school I work with, one of the young men that I work with in my program now goes to a school in Minneapolis, a Title I school. Their football program faces a lot of challenges. They are not a good football program. They had an all-metro, all-city team captain player this year, a college football player. There's no reason he shouldn't play in college, and he's going to. He's going to a junior college. He's in his senior season right now, so class 2020 graduating. And he was talking to me in about December, and he didn't know about the NCAA clearinghouse. Didn't even know what it was. And to me, that's just a travesty. That's inexcusable if people are in your high school football program and they don't understand it should be every kid in the program, but if you got an all metro player and you're not advocating to help them get to college, you're failing the kid. So in good programs, recruiting is a priority. Majority of the time, it's more like an afterthought. Okay, we're going to get through the season. Maybe it's your graduating year and coaches are starting to reach out to some schools, in December. But it's kind of on the back burner. And at the bottom of all of this is if you're lucky, right? We all know there are kids in much worse situations at schools where, we don't need to talk down on them. But in everything in life, there's good and there's bad. And in a bad high school football program, they're not getting any of this. So this is kind of what I see as your basic standard, middle of the road, how we're supporting kids right now at the high school athletic level, in their pursuit and their goals of their dreams to play at the next level. Now, here's what we focus on and where we differ from kind of some of those things we just talked about. And some of these things I know coaches are going to look at and think, where, how, and when will I find the time to implement this? And I'd be happy to answer any questions and talk about what we do and how you can. And it is possible. It's really realistic. So leadership, I don't need to talk about that. I'm not going to talk to a bunch of grown men who run football programs about leadership, because I understand everybody in here is a leader. And it's probably a strength of your skill set, and everybody's got different ways they implement it and teach it in their program. But nonetheless, we are intentional about our focus still surrounding leadership. So we're very intentional. It's a word we use a lot and relate to a lot of these other lessons. So time management, man, juggling all your new responsibilities as a college student athlete. Man, I'll say it again. When I got to junior college, I was commuting to school, washing dishes 25 hours a week, practices, weights, hitting the field in between classes. It was insane. It was insane. I never thought when I was in high school and I was going to sign a scholarship or go play football that I would even have a job. And I had a job from the day I was a freshman on campus until the day I graduated. During the season, off season, summer, and that is the reality for most student athletes who are not Power 5 players. And even if you don't have a job, just study hall as a freshman, 5 a.m. weights, traveling on the weekends during season, time management. So we are intentional about all of these. Time management, we harp on that, and we talk about scheduling, how to make your schedule, how to prioritize. Prioritizing is so important. We had dudes shooting pool in the student union when their class started, and they'll just walk in 15 minutes late just to clear the table. So learning how to prioritize, set a standard, hold yourself accountable with how you spend your time and how valuable your seconds are in comparison to your peers, right? An analogy I use, if Johnny and Billy are standing in a room and I got an investor in the room and he's investing in your guys' seconds, is he willing to put more money towards? How valuable are your seconds? And that's a clear way to get it across to a young man that how are you spending your time? If somebody in this room had to decide how to give you $1 million or your buddy based on how you spent your time and how you manage your time, you might reevaluate things. So academic success, I graduated summa cum laude in college, 3.98 GPA. I had these tools. I struggled a lot when I first got to community college, but we do practical advice. Like I said, we sit down and take notes and give tips and talk about what you could do every night within your routines and your schedules to become a better student. We don't just say, here's a Kaplan test prep book. Go ahead, go crazy. Kids do not understand a lot of that stuff. Even saying you need to study more. Well, how do I study? We teach kids how to study. We teach kids how to take tests. I got a senior right now in my program. I'm not going to say what his test score was, but he needs to improve it. And I asked him, I said, did you run out of time during the test? He said, yes, I ran out of time with a lot of questions left. And I said, well, you filled them in, right? And he said, no. He's got 10 D1 offers. We got guys leaving questions blank on standardized testing because they don't understand that when the time run low, take a shot. Really basic things. Kids are not getting this information. Nobody's preparing them for it if they don't have it already. Financial literacy, I want to make that very clear that I'm not Dave Ramsey, okay? I'm not a financial advisor, did not get a degree in finance. I couldn't tell you the first thing about finances on a professional level. I could teach you how to hustle, though, as a college student athlete. That's something that I'm well versed in. Um, we give kids a pre-survey before they enter our program. Out of our 7 kids who took the survey, I think 6 of them didn't know what a loan was. They didn't know what FAFSA was. They didn't know what interest was. Seniors in high school. If you think that's not going to implement a kid when they get to the next level, it's going to have more of an implication on how they turn out as a student athlete in college than their 40-yard dash, than their bench press. I've seen it too many times. Unfortunately, a lot of people who go on to play college athletics, it's a huge barrier. Finances, especially with smaller divisions, partial scholarships, but just educating kids on the right questions and understanding even the basic things like when they have to pay back their loans, what interest is, credit score, the very basic things. Mental health. This is one that, I think some programs probably talk about. Some maybe just don't talk about it at all. But I think mental health has a few different categories, as far as coping and self-care, but also mental toughness. A lot of guys fold at the college level when adversity hits. And I don't mean fold as in quit the program. I mean fold as in, we lost a game on Saturday. I'm going to go out and get drunk and I'm going to get in a fight or something like that. Lack of judgment, losing the vision, why they're there in the first place. Pretty self-explanatory, but we're intentional about what we do with that mental health.
Question for you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Obviously, the mental toughness is a big deal, right? So I'm sure you see that quite often with kids just lacking that mental toughness. Is there something that you talk to them about that or anything you recommend to kind of work on that for themselves?
I think a big aspect of mental toughness is accountability. So when we assign an assignment or when we give a kid a project to do, or we hold them accountable first and foremost. And if you don't, you're going to hear it from me. And you're going to know that if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to do a lot of other things that are going to be asked of you. I think it starts with accountability and mental toughness. Another thing is embracing the suck is like a cliche, but I'm actually a proponent for sometimes, and I know this isn't scientific or there's controversy about this with strength and conditioning, but sometimes you give kids hard shit to do just because it's hard, and they got to understand that. And you back it up by saying, you want something, prove to me that you want it by being able to follow instructions, being able to hold yourself accountable, and being able to just endure some pain, endure some frustration, whatever it may be. So I think there's exercises you can do in the weight room. I know some people disagree with it, but I've lived it, okay? A story for me personally, when I was in wrestling in high school, we had a coach who was in the Navy SEALs, and he used to we'd do like 30 seconds on the Aerodyne, the resistance bike, and we would do 30 seconds with a goal time, and he would just lie to our face. He would say, if you guys hit 30 seconds on 3 in a row, you won't have to do a 4th one. We would all go crazy, and he would just laugh and say, I'm just going to make you do another one. And that was where you would see people break, and people use that as a motivation to go further. So I think accountability, and then I think there are actually exercises and things you can do just to increase mental toughness. And then I think another third portion of that would be incorporating guest speakers and people who have endured a lot of adversity or been through tough situations that can relate to the kids and present a message in a way that's that they understand it and it hits home for them. So I would say incorporating outside resources, accountability, and exercises, whether it's just a team finisher, team competition, whatever that may be. Moving forward to personal brand, I don't call it recruiting because recruiting is applicable to so many areas in life. And I hate just telling a kid how to finesse the game and get college coaches' attention, because your personal brand is who you are. So we talk a lot about your relationships with your teachers, your family, your peers, your mentors, and how that all kind of comes full circle in a recruiting process. And it's not really about convincing a coach that you should get a scholarship or whatever it may be. It's about building relationships and providing value. And you do that by being a great football player, being a great student, being a great person, and developing a brand that is desirable, that people want to purchase and people want to invest in. So we don't like to call it a recruiting phase. We call it personal brand. And we talk about first impressions, introducing and selling yourself. I'm going to talk about some of the actual activities we do here in a few minutes and get into some of that and provide some examples of things that you can do in your program. Character, self-explanatory, professional development. So we focus on interviewing, resumes, helping kids open up bank accounts, teenagers, so that they're not just cashing checks all the time. Networking is a big one, teaching kids how to reach out, how to build relationships with people that are where they want to be. I think a lot of times young people, particularly college student athletes, don't understand how willing people are to help. I know I got a job in college just by reaching out to somebody in a cold email, just expressing interest. And I went and talked to them, and they just said, we've never had somebody just want to talk to us about what we do. It was a nonprofit organization, and they offered me a job. I'm talking about like a part-time job while I was in school, but reaching out to people, learning from them, networking, dressing professional. I'm sure a lot of people have covered some of these things in their programs, but it's a comprehensive unit where we radio, public speaking, interview skills, not interview, job interview, but media, like I said, being able to sit in front of a microphone or public speak. Character, self-explanatory, big picture, your legacy, first week, biggest differences between college and high school. So just kind of, those three kind of round out some of the more broad sections that a lot of programs already incorporate. Here's how we do it as far as program design. So intentional. I think a lot of times it's easy in May to, text a player, how is it looking for college? We are intentional weekly meetings. And every time we're talking about college prep, professional development, life development, we continuously put these words and plant these seeds in these kids' heads always with an end goal in mind. So we don't ever do anything without explaining why and tying it back. Accountability, like I said, assignments, activities, competitions. You want to play in college, you show me. And I'm going to call you out in a meeting if you didn't do it. And we give assignments that really focus on a lot of social, emotional stuff. We have a great group of guys from 3 different schools who face a lot of similar challenges, but they were not comfortable opening up to each other at all. 4 weeks in, we're getting into some deep conversations in the room and car rides and things of that nature. And it is intimate. So I would recommend, you could do this by like grades at your school. I would recommend just doing it with seniors. As of right now, a lot of this stuff could just be something you do with your seniors once a week. We get 15, 16, 17-year-old dudes to open up and have conversations that they're not able to have in their locker rooms. They're not able to have in their schools. We connect them, we give them a platform, and we put them in position and build relationships to where that becomes second nature, and they're able to learn from each other. Experience, we bring in guest speakers who have been in their shoes, who have been where they want to go. And I'm sure a lot of programs do that already, but I think sometimes there's people in your community that you can tap into that maybe necessarily aren't the first person that comes to mind. Consistency is huge. So we give them workbooks and we give them assignments that we can refer back to. So week 4, we can go, okay, so now we're talking about time management. Well, do you remember in week 1 when we're talking about introducing yourself and sending an email to a college coach? Well, here's the quickest way to do that. Okay, and the difference between high school, so it comes full circle. We're always relating the next lesson back to the first one so that it's cumulative, and the kids are able to continuously get that information in front of them each week as they're learning and getting new information. And then the presentation. I take a lot of pride in my curriculum development and how we do things, what activities we do, what the stakes are. How we use visuals and worksheets. I'm trying to be an innovator. I'm trying to create ways to get this information and get it in front of kids that hasn't been done before, because I'm trying to create a change that has not been discussed before and it doesn't get talked about. That kind of concludes the whole spiel. Now I'm going to just give some examples of like concrete things that we've done. So on the top left here, they're doing an academic obstacle course. We'll show that on the next slide, one of the next slides. In the middle here, we've got a student athlete. He won a competition and did our first annual book draft. So we treated it like the NFL draft, where we brought in books from Eric Thomas, John Maxwell. We had about 8 best-selling leadership books, and they got to do a competition to do the book draft. Each week they bring back 3 things they've learned from wherever they're at in their book, and they share it round table. So they have to learn how to present it with the group, and they have to learn how to put it into. They have to learn how to take in the information in a way that they learn it well enough to present it to somebody else. In the top right, that's our time management. So that'll be on one of the following slides, but we did a quick little mini challenge game where they were doing whipped cream pies to the face, shots of hot sauce, dancing, posting videos on their Snapchat. And it was a competition to teach them about some different things within managing time and scheduling and prioritizing. Bottom right, and I understand this one's not really accessible for high school programs. It may be, if you have 10 seniors and you do $10 each, but we went to Aldi, gave them $20, and the person who got the most, they had a checklist. It was like a healthy protein item, a post-workout snack, and whoever got, so look at the picture, right? So we've got a dude here with 1 bag, and we got a dude who's got 2 bags on the left and in the middle. And I told them their $20 limit when they got to the register. Just a funny side story. If you go over, you could put stuff back, but I told them to keep track. Some kids didn't listen. I just kind of laughed. And a few dudes. So the guy second from the left here, he's a freshman. He rang up at like $12.64. And he's like, "Oh, can I get that 7?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "No, because you didn't." I said, "You just left money on the table, and I'm going to let this be a lesson for you." And then the far left, Michael, a senior, he won. He rang up at about 1970 something. And that was by far the closest to spending the correct amount of money. A lot of the dudes were at like $14, $15. So maybe I didn't present that lesson well enough, but nonetheless, the kids had a great time. They got to bring home the food. We bought it for them. The winner got to spend an additional $10 or $20 or something like that. But these types of lessons stick with kids forever. I mean, the quotes that we hear from kids is some of the stuff you hear makes you realize how much they're missing out on. They were literally saying, "I had no idea you could get this much food for $20. And they were showing up to meetings all the time before with snacks from the gas station and fast food. And, so those are just 4. I brought pictures up. Here's a few different ones. So this one was awesome. It's almost like when you're doing a new play, or you run it for the game run it in a game for the first time, or a lesson plan as a teacher. I draw this thing up and I'm like, man, I have no idea how this is going to work. So I printed off 21 school lessons or 21 school logos. And I printed off 21 matching statistics, cut them all up, laminated them. And it was another competition. We split them into 2 teams, and whoever could match the most logos with the correct statistic won. And the purpose of this is to teach the kids that there's different schools that fit at every level that break stereotypes. So, if you look down the left, the school that won 6 national championships printout was Carroll NAIA school in Montana. Nobody got that. They were all like, it's got to be Clemson, or I think there was Duke in there or something. And, none of the kids, the 32,000 students, there's no way it's a junior college. I was just cracking up because my junior college had about 12,000 students at it. And it was East Los Angeles JUCO. So it worked out perfectly. The winning team got 3 out of 21, and the losing team got 2 out of 21. And then when we revealed these, it taught them, every level. It's not every D1 school, because I just pulled up some examples here, but Rice was on there, and Rice has, 3,200 enrollment. And some of the D2 schools were with 16,000 enrollment. So just teaching them different demographics. The statistic for Clemson was actually that it's one of the least diverse schools in the entire country. So all of our students are Black students, and Clemson's like 84% white student body enrollment. So we just talk about these different things that you consider when you go to school that maybe don't cross your mind. I said, there's different social dynamics when you get to college, that there's a lot more that goes into the lifestyle, the city that you're living in, population, the demographics of the city, the cost of living of the city, how many students are on campus, and all these different things. So this was a fun one, really easy. You could do this in your own program. I hit me up if you want the template. You can make your own. And it took, like I said, maybe 20 minutes for me to make it, maybe 20 minutes to do it total. You give them 10 minutes, then you talk about it. You ask them which one was the most surprising. Their Morehouse had the highest average attendance for D2. And these were, some of these are, from 2017 or whatever, but it's just to get the point out that not every D3 school is super small. Not every D1 school is super big. I think St. John's University in Minnesota had a lot larger crowds than most of the Division II and some Division I schools. So breaking down stereotypes and teaching kids to do research rather than checking boxes and looking at things that are less important to what's really going to be impacting their life when they're on campus. And this would tie into like our personal brand, and we would tie this into recruiting. That we would probably talk about the scholarships and how they break down at each level, and then talk about, just various things to consider when you're choosing a school in general. Academic obstacle course, students so we had a worksheet. This is just for the questions on there, and the answers are on there because it's the key for me. But they're able to use their phones, and it was a race to see how many kids could find the correct answers, and they had to write down their source. Again, this took me 10 minutes to make, took us 10 minutes to do, and it was a great lesson because the kids understood just how accessible information is. We're just teaching them, there is no excuse in 2020. You are not allowed to tell me that you don't know. Because if you don't know, you can ask for help, but you're not allowed to tell me that you don't know. The information is there. Anybody can find the answers. You can ask me for help. You can ask me to point you in the right direction. You are not allowed to tell me I don't know. And that's something that we instill in these kids in this program, because they got to learn to advocate for themselves and support themselves, because that's what it is when you get to college a lot of the time. So there was 5 more questions on here. Funny enough, nobody could figure out all 9, even with their phones. APR stumped a lot of them. And there was one other question on there, I think, related to like compound interest or something. But it was a fun challenge, and they get into it. I mean, it was dead silent. They were focused. Pencils are moving fast, and it's a learning experience. And this tied into our academic success lesson. We talked about study habits, where to find information, differences between legitimate and illegitimate sources, and things of that nature. So this is just another example of something we did to prepare students. And you could even turn this into a football activity even. It could just be a coverage quiz or something, but expanding beyond what your team's covering already. Maybe just historical questions about football, or it could be how many rushing yards does our opponent this week starting running back have? How many returning starters do they have from past season? Things like that. Teaching kids how to navigate, use technology to find answers. Here's the time management challenge. We talked about the value of a second already. Evaluating how to make your schedule prioritize. We do competitions. We almost always include a competition. It's great to teach kids to compete, but not only it gets buy-in, right? It's kids instantly buy in when you could give them a chance to win a prize, or you build up that atmosphere. Especially we got kids from like rival schools. So we got North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and we got the 2 teams that split the river in North Minneapolis, the only 2 out of the 3 public schools up there, and they play against each other during the season. So it's really fun. I get the benefit of working with kids from cross programs, and I got real close connections with all their coaches. But so if you look there, they were given 2 minutes to look at the sheet and kind of game plan as a team. There's a lot more stuff. There's probably 20 more things they could do. I just didn't fit it on here. And this was fun. Again, this was fun. And they got 2 minutes to look at it and decide, okay, how should we break this down? How should we go about it? And then we talked about after the activity was done, one team won by about a few of them were competitions. So like you can't see on there was like play an opponent and connect 4. We talked about the difference between low risk, low reward. So we talked about some things you just have to do in life. Some things you just have to do. You're not really it's a low effort, low reward. So brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, simple things like that. Then we talked about risking things. So going to take a chance on something that there's no guaranteed reward at all. So job interviews, trying out for a team, asking a girl on a date, whatever it might be. And then we talked about high risk, high reward. So that would be more so like dedicating yourself to something, or enduring some pain to get through something, taking a shot of hot sauce, whatever it might be. This, is just a visual on the side here, but the kids had a lot of fun with that. We gave them a timer. We split them up into small groups. And that kind of concluded what I had for specific activities. I got a lot more stuff. I kind of just wanted to see if coaches had any questions about as far as like logistics of how to implement stuff in your program. What I tell coaches is when I go to, because we are a nonprofit program, I actually am looking to incorporate this into some athletic departments in the fall at schools where the entire student athlete body across all sports will be involved. And we'll do weekly meetings before school over the course of the year. But there's certainly a lot of ways to find the time to do it. And I just want to emphasize how beneficial this is, and coaches, how you can be intentional about developing your young people. And as we all know, if they get better at managing their time, if they get better at school, if they get better at being a professional, if they get better at their personal brand, it's undeniable that they're going to become a better football player. Your program will get better. I just want to advocate for coaches to please find time to do some of these things. I'm always an open resource. Everything I've done, there's not a penny of profit involved in this. I've got a job. This is my passion. I see this more as something I could do to make an impact. And I'm more than happy to collaborate with coaches, hop on Zoom, even show you how to print. I can share some of the activities, the printouts, things of that nature. But take it from somebody who was in the shoes of a lot of your players not too long ago. 2013, like I said, graduated high school. I thought I had the world at my fingertips, and I excelled in comparison to my peers. I was the man on campus. I'll say it, in high school, and I got to college, and I ended up getting evicted. When I graduated junior college, I had a gap semester with no scholarships, where I was a house painter, and I just basically smoked weed every day. Got home from painting, and I had no ambition. I was at the lows. Went from being in a brand new program to becoming a team captain in 6 months, and had a lot of low points during my college. And I matured enough on the back end of my career to realize that when I started reflecting on a lot of these moments, I understood how I could have benefited from putting more attention to it at a earlier time, especially during the high school years.
Got a question for you here, Andrew. How do you deal with players that don't immediately buy into the program?
And that's inevitable. It's not players, that's everybody. Nobody is going to buy into something like this immediately. It's literally inevitable. I'm a white dude, not from Minnesota, and I showed up at these schools, and I talked to their coaches, and I call and text these kids, and ultimately it's showing them that you care. So the kids who resisted at first, I increased my contact with them. I increased the frequency of how often I talk to them. I was really intentional about the way that I talk to them, and they have to understand what your intentions are. So if you're a coach, I would hope that you've already got a relationship in place where it shouldn't be difficult to get buy-in, but getting the players to understand why you're doing this, I think it starts with personal stories, personal messages, making them understand what you're trying to do for them. And we even say it in Blessed to Announce. It's even one of our kind of quotes we live by as a group, and one of our group morals is you can't fake being people first. So if you build a genuine relationship with your players, ultimately, I went from, it's awesome for me to talk about because I went from having kids, the first meeting we had, nobody showed up to. I got every single kid no call, no showed me. And I had meetings where I reserved libraries. I ordered my first polo. I'm getting all my materials out. I'm showing up and nobody came. And now we're at the point where these kids will text me at 1 in the – I had a freshman text me on a Saturday night at 11:45, how do I be great? I got kids texting me 10:35, I'm the first person they know when they get a new offer. Got them opening up to me about their families late at night, calling me. I'm now a guy that they go to. So it went from me chasing them to them going to me. And I think it's just being resilient, being people first, being genuine, and being intentional about talking about why we're doing what we're doing.
Solid. That was good right there. Does anybody else have any questions? And Andrew, if you do me a favor, man, if you can throw your contact back up there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I don't even think I.
Or if you want to,
I'll type it on there.
Type it in the chat or even on there. Yeah. Guys, I'm telling you, if you know you're just listening to him the first time, or if you haven't seen him on Twitter, you know what he's talking about. I mean, this is something that he's been doing for a long time, and like I said, you know, and he obviously alluded to it as well. He's very, very passionate about this, and you can tell, man. I mean, you know, he's giving back to the community on a daily basis. So, and once again, man, you know, you follow his journey, like he said. I mean, he's in the shoes of a lot of our guys. And, you know, his book explains a lot of that, you know, so check that out. Definitely reach out to him. I see a couple coaches in here that'll say they'll be in touch. And it's, I mean, you know, some of that stuff that he's doing, man, is awesome. You know what I mean? And it's because he wants to, and it's because he's passionate about it. And I think that's incredible. Also on a side note, you know, if you're looking for any type of graphic design, headers and things like that, my man's got skills. He's done, man, his banners are all over the place. So if you're following the coach, you've most likely seen one of his banners. That's a fact. So I appreciate him for jumping on. If anybody has any questions, you know, feel free to drop in the chat. If not, man, obviously he put his contact up there. If you want to reach out, and I'm going to take a picture because I don't think I have your cell, but feel free to reach out and, you know, like I said, make something happen, man. Make something happen at your school, even if it's something where, you know, especially now, guys, right, with Zoom, and I know a lot of schools are having certain, you know, or a lot of programs are having team meetings and things like that via Zoom. I think it'd be great, and you know, I don't want to speak for you, but you know, having a team meeting and having talk to the guys for a little bit, you know what I mean? Just kind of school them up on certain things. I think stuff like that would be awesome. So, you know, obviously that's something that you can talk with him one-on-one, but you know, once again, I've been telling people this nonstop. During this time, people have more time on their hands. So when they give their contact information, use it, utilize it, because when things get back in the swing of things, people may not be so available. And it may be a little more difficult to get in contact or make something happen. So, you know, strike while the iron's hot in a sense, you know what I mean? So, but if nobody has any questions, man, Andrew, once again, man, I appreciate you coming on and you know, doing this great presentation.
I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate, you know, all the coaches that were in here to listen. And
100%.
Like I said, I hope everyone has a blessed weekend, man, a safe Easter, and enjoys and, you know, continues to be positive in these times and spread love and good energy out into society. And I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to me. Yeah, hit me up whenever. If you got questions or follow up, I'm a free resource. I'm going to send you whatever I got that can help benefit your young man in your program. So don't hesitate to reach out. But yeah, other than that, stay safe and have a good weekend.